Reuben passed away 3 months ago due to a fentanyl overdose. He was 19. He was a blast. Had such a character, was always joking, loved animals from the age of 2, loved sports, loved his brother, just loved life. Everybody loved him. The teachers always would tell me what a great kid he was, so respectful and full of life.
He was a very complicated person. You had to be there to understand him, and you just had to give him a chance to get to understand his personality before you actually knew who he was.
He had a big personality. It was, I don't know, you could have a room full of people and you would know who Ruben is, you know? That's the kind of personality he had. And he was real tough. Came off real tough. But when you got to know him, he was a really cool dude. Good friend.
I don't have anybody I could joke around with, have him mess with me and joke around. I don't have that anymore, and it sucks.
After their dad passed away, he started wanting to dabble into drugs. I moved to Abilene, and he really got into them bad then.
2.5 years ago, his personality started to change. He became more closed off to us. He didn't want us around him as much. He was more secretive. He would lie.
I mean, we've always smoked weed, done that, you know, normal teenager stuff. But it really started with the cocaine and the fentanyl and all that other stuff was when he moved in with a buddy of his. I would say that's whenever I noticed a big change in all that. It went from just weed and drinking every once in a while to just a whole nother world of stuff. And you could tell it was just a spiraling downfall from there.
It became a snowball. You would just slowly start to realize it more and more, and things would click. And you would see, yeah, it's the drugs, because nobody who's sober would do the things that he was doing.
So I had every type of emotion and every reaction a mother could have. I tried the tough love. I tried being there more for him, tried to give him even more love than what I had been. And then there was times I was just at a loss.
He used to sell a lot of our stuff to get the money for the drugs. And so I would come home days, find my stuff gone. I would argue with him about it, and he would sit there and make me feel like I was an idiot about it, making me feel like I didn't know what I was talking about, like my stuff was never missing, like I just misplaced it. And so it irritated me, because being my brother, you should feel like you shouldn't have to do me like that. But it wasn't him. It was the drugs, and I came to realize that, because they mess up your mind, they mess up your personality, and make you do a person you never would want to be.
Well, when I found out he was smoking weed, I was, of course, worried because he was a young age. But that was all I knew he was doing up until he was 17 and a half. I had no idea he was into anything else. He had his first overdose when he was 18. So, I mean, at that point, I was in a panic. I was concerned about his well-being. When the EMS arrived, they did have to administer Narcan. They had to do it 4 times to revive him. He promised he wasn't going to do it anymore. He had a girlfriend that was pregnant with his daughter, and he said he wanted to be there for her, and he didn't want to do drugs anymore. And unfortunately, that didn't last. He went right back out to the streets and started doing drugs again, which led to his overdose.
He knew what he was getting his hands into, but it was those little pills, you know, the pressed Percocets. They look like Percocets, but they're not. They're pressed to look like them, and they have fentanyl in them, and who knows what else, really. They're man-made, so they really could have anything in them. But yeah, he knew what he was getting into, and it was just horrible just seeing all this happen so quick. You know, it it was like within months. He went from someone I knew on, I used my best friend, to someone I had no idea who he was.
On the morning of May 20th, he wanted to come to San Antonio with a friend to go see some family. He left where we live about 5 a.m. About 12:30, they stopped at a hotel here in San Antonio and got a room. And that was the last anybody heard from Reuben.
His baby mother kept calling us, asking if we've heard from Ruben, and so I called him, texted him, and it had been 4 hours since I'd actually heard from him.
I was out at one of my friend's house. We were fishing out at his lake, and Carlos called me, told me, "Hey, have you heard from Ruben?" And I said, "Yeah, and just got off the phone with him. Why, what's up?" And he said, "We haven't heard from him in hours, and he hasn't been answering any of us." So I was like, "Oh, that's weird. I just got off the phone with him." He had called me and told him I was going to call him back whenever I got done fishing. And so I just left it to that, and that's whenever Carlos called me. And so I went to call Ruben back, no answer.
And so she started talking about she's gonna call SAPD, I think that's what it is, San Antonio Police Department, to do a wellness check on him and make sure he was okay.
About 3 o'clock, Reuben's girlfriend was calling Reuben, calling the friend. The friend finally answered, put her on a video chat, and Reuben was asleep in the bed with red around him. The girlfriend was in a panic. She said it looked like either vomit or blood, and that he needed to call the EMS right away. During that time, she called my other son to tell him that she thought Reuben was dead, based on the video she witnessed. We couldn't get a hold of anybody. We kept calling and calling and calling, both phones, Reuben's phone and his friend's phone, and nobody got back with us. I guess about 3:30, his friend finally called EMS. By the time they got there, he was already pronounced dead.
And it was probably like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The police came by my house and started started knocking, and then they started talking to my mom about it and just saying that he had passed and that they had figured out from his emergency contact to who he belonged.
Couple hours goes by. Carlos calls me again, tells me, "Hey, you're not gonna like what you're about to hear." And from before he even told me that he was dead, I knew, I could feel something wasn't right. And because whenever I was on the phone with him, I could tell that he was high. I could tell that, he did something. And whenever I saw that, immediately came to my mind was, what could happen. Because this isn't the only time that it's happened. It's happened 2 other times before where he's overdosed and died. And so that was the first thing that came to my mind whenever I saw him high. So before anything was even said, that was kind of in the back of my head.
It's just really shocking. It's unbelievable. You don't know how to feel about it. Your heart feels like it's been snapped into pieces.
That's the last of that. His friend never reached out to contact us and let us know what happened. If there was something different that could have been done, we've never spoken to him since that day.
Try to be there for as much as I could be there for him, and then be there for his daughter, be there for my niece, and try to make sure she knows who her father was, how much he loved her, and be there for her.
So whenever I heard that, he was gone, he passed away, it made me mad, it just made me feel like, not necessarily mad at him, but just why did it have to end this way,
I still have dreams about him, and I'll wake up, my heart beating out of my chest. I feel like I can't breathe. It just, when I see him in my dreams, it feels like it's real, like he's there next to me. And so it's just one of those things, once you wake up, you just got to realize he's gone and he's not coming back. So it's just, I got the dreams, the memories, and just the pictures and thoughts of him is, I feel like, is how I remember him.
I want to say I'm mad at Ruben for it, but it's not really going to do anything. But I just wish he could have really seen what he could have been.
Every time I'm playing the game, I sit there and think about him. Every time I do the things we do or did, I think about him. Every time I play the game, every time I watch one of his favorite movies or listen to his favorite song, I just think about him the whole time, and it really messes with me.
So I feel like through this whole addiction, I feel like he lost that sense of like self-awareness of who he was, and like he forgot that. So I just noticed that he just stopped caring about himself and just what everybody else thought about him, and that wasn't Ruben, And there's just another thing in that situation, like with addiction, you can only do so much in those situations. It's all really on the person doing it. You can tell them as much as you want, but you can't get them to really do anything unless they want to.
I really hope they learn to watch for the signs of their loved one, their behavior, be more involved, and know that it could happen to anybody's child or loved one. It doesn't have to be somebody that's actively into drugs. It could be one time at a party. That's all it takes. So I hope people realize and they start educating their children more and their loved ones.
Watch you hang around and watch. Because the thing that had the big play in all this is the people he hung around. He would want to do better for himself, but find himself with the same people at the end of the day. So how are you expecting to change going around the same environment that you grew out of? So I feel like your surroundings have a big play in you as a person. And I don't know, just from watching everything, I noticed that it went from just a occasional fun weekend thing to another day of it won't hurt, another day of it won't hurt, to a point where it was an every single day thing. And at that point, you don't even realize it until you're neck deep in it. And at that point, it's too late. And that's the scary part about this stuff, is that it catches you so blindly and that it takes all these people's lives away.